Okay, let's talk about hand stitching and what we need. So start with a cut file that you've already backed with any of the pattern papers that you like. This is a close to my heart foam mat, but a mouse pad works fabulously. I have a little Sucrets box. This was my grandmother's, and it has some of the supplies I need. You need a poker tool, and you need a sewing needle. So I'm looking for my favorite sewing needle, which is this one, and it's bent. Don't ask me why it's bent, but I always look for the bent one, and the bent one is the one I use. There are other ones in there, but I use the bent one. See, I'm showing you, like, it's bent. I don't know what the deal is. You could probably use a straight needle and be totally fine. I have that little poker tool, which is from Amy Tangerine, but you can totally use something else. In fact, I'm going to show you another option that you have for this. You don't want to use a needle. That's going to kill your hands. I also have this Tim Holtz Pokey tool, which would work just as well as the little Amy Tangerine one. But that one just kind of works nice in my hand, so it's the one I use. So you're going to lay your cut file on the mat of your choosing, and you're going to poke holes every maybe half an inch, quarter of an inch, wherever you feel comfortable. You don't want your stitches to be too long. The closer they are together, the more texture it provides. But that being said, if they're too close together, you can have a lot of problems with things ripping, because remember, we're stitching on paper. So I would just do maybe about a quarter inch apart on your holes. Whatever you use to poke with, it has to be larger than a sewing needle, because just for movement and also because it really hurts your hand if you use a needle to poke all these. I've seen people use thumbtacks. That would work. If you think you're going to do it a lot, then I would invest in one of the Pokey tools from Tim Holtz. They're pretty awesome. I don't think Amy Tangerine makes these little orange Pokey tools anymore. So next you want to, well, actually, you don't have to do this. Okay, so I take a 6-strand embroidery thread and I split it in half so that you have two, like you get 2 threads with 3 strands each. Now, a little backstory, this is how my grandmother taught me to stitch. She taught me to cross stitch and embroider when I was little, and this is what she did. I have since learned that this is like an old Depression era thing that people did to keep for their thread to be last longer. So if you want to use all 6 strands of your embroidery thread, that's fine. I never use 6 strands of embroidery thread. I always separate them out because, again, that's just how I was taught. I do think it affects the it obviously, it would affect the thickness of your stitch. So, if you don't like the look of really thick stitching, maybe you want to separate yours too. I just separate mine. It's a little time consuming, but I just pull a length of embroidery thread that's, like the length of my arm, cut it, separate it, and then I go ahead and embroider. So for me, I have a experience. Like I said, my grandmother taught me to embroider when I was little, so I do have embroidery experience. I know that a lot of people kind of just grab some washi tape and tape down the back. I actually knot my thread and then tape down the back just because that's how I was taught. And it seems totally odd to me not to knot your thread. But if you've never done this before, don't worry about the knot. You can always just hold your thread down with washi tape, and then you're just going to do a back stitch. So a back stitch is really easy. I tried to get up close to the camera to give you a good idea of what a back stitch looks like. And if you're like me and your length of thread is too long because you don't like switching threads, you might end up kind of knotting it. But if you happen to, that's fine. It's okay. It's all right. Don't sweat it. I am someone who I don't like to switch my thread out, so I tend to start with way too much thread, and then it wants to rat up. But That's just me. So you can see here kind of how I'm doing it. I think at some point I take it way close up to the camera so that I can really show you how to do the stitch. But you can kind of get a good idea of what I am doing here. So, oh, there we go. See, I knew at some point I stood up and got it right in there. So you come up through the back. And down through the front. And then when you come down, you're going to kind of skip a hole before you come in. And see, I'm so bad. I hate redoing my thread. And that's it. When you're finished with a section, you can switch colors, you can switch whatever you like, and then you just start the process over again. Punch your holes, get your thread, and then just stitch again. If you're new to this, I would start with a file that has a nice thick line. So this spring tulip file from Cut to You is a perfect one to start on or to stitch, because when you cut it, you get these, the outline is nice and thick. It's not really thin. And so you're easily able to go ahead and stitch through without running into problems. Yeah, so that's it. I hope that this little stitching tutorial will help you. If you've never tried it before, I highly recommend it. It's so fun, and here is the end result of my layout, which you can see the process for that on my channel today as well. Okay, I'll talk to you all very soon. Bye.